you said connecting to your feminine. Can you put a little bit more context for people around about that?
Yeah. You know, I guess I don't want to get too much into like, the woo woo and all that stuff like that.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
You know, it's simply to say, and maybe some of your listeners have heard this before, the idea that as a human, not as a man, not as a woman, but as a human, I have masculine and feminine aspects. Um, to me, the way I look at masculinity and femininity is that the they're simply one half of the other of the same coin. I think that's
Mm-hmm,
I can
mm-hmm,
say it
mm-hmm.
that way, right?
Anima and animus, right? As Carl Jung said.
Yeah, yeah, all that. And you know, the way I look at it is this: is I try to be objective about it,
Mm.
in the sense that we can call it like we're calling this idea of masculinity because our minds and our brains want to have a label to know what it is, to describe it, to share it, and that function of being human. And at the same time, it's just a name, right? It's just masculinity. That's just a name we're just calling this thing.
A label,
That to
yeah.
Yeah, that again to me is simply the other half of something.
Mm-hmm,
So like the yin and yang symbol, right? You know, it's simply that there's two halves. There is up and there's down, right? There's this and there's that, and there appears, although there's nuance to this, it appears that generally speaking, there are humans in what's appear to be more male bodies, and humans that appear to be in more female bodies.
mm.
And you know, and within that dance, there's also yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one because it seems like there's paradox, and there is. At the same time, it can be super simple, right? It's simply
Mm.
that there are two parts of me,
Mm-hmm,
right? There is the masculine, there's the feminine. I could even just say that there are two parts. There are two halves. There's a part that
mm-hmm.
seems to be like this, and there's a part that seems to be like this. Now we happen to call this feminine, we happen to call this masculine, but really to me, ultimately, as a man and as a person, really as a human, is finding that balance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Finding that balance, and not necessarily in every single moment, right? Which is to say that there are some periods of time, there are some moments, but also there are some periods of time where maybe it's beneficial for me as a human, right? I could be a male or female, but it could be beneficial for me to use more of my masculine or use more of the feminine qualities. And it's simply me being present with what's happening in the moment, being conscious about what I'm bringing out and how I'm engaging with what is, and always with this sense of coming back to balance. Whatever that is in each moment, right? It's gonna be different for each moment, different for each person. But the my ascendant is Libra, so I'm all about balance. I'm all about this thing. But it really is the idea that I really like to work with these days is almost like being on a surfboard.
Mm.
And that's life.
It's a good metaphor. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The thing is moving. There's things happening all the time, and it can seem like I'm not doing much, but what's actually happening is I'm finding my balance
Mm-hmm,
in every single moment.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's yeah. And again, coming back to that masculine and feminine side, there's a lot of potency in being able to access both,
Yeah.
and when appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Listening to this, I can draw correlations to my personal story. At times, I was very much into my feminine side, if you will. Where I was growing up, my mother was a choreographer, so I was naturally around a lot of women, and my kind of coping mechanism for this was to be kind of I won't say the class clown, but to be drawing attention and just being surrounded by a lot of women, which naturally made me very comfortable being around that. It wasn't up until a later stage in my life where I fell in love in a relationship, and that's when I realized, wow, okay, my ways of being and kind of moving through this flying rock through space isn't gonna help me with this woman. Essentially, I was a 21 or 22-year-old boy at the time, So I really had to start again exploring a little bit more into my masculine side and masculine traits and qualities and purpose and direction, etc., etc. So
Mm.
I do really resonate with what you're saying, that it's like a board. It's a very fine dance. It's a whenever you're trying to kind of balance those two. And
Yeah.
this is not to say that you always I've been into that like constant warrior mode. Every obstacle I see in front of me is a wall that I need to go through. There is no other way. But having this ability, again, it's a bit of a paradox, but the true master is being able to hold it both within you and still being able to move forward and make decisions. um, is quite a skill to have. It's quite a skill, but I
Mhm.
definitely see the benefits of this kind of approach or thinking, I'd say.
Mhm. Yeah, and just to expound upon that just a little bit more,
Mm,
and I think you touched on it, is that it's important to recognize that as people, right, men
yeah,
and women,
yeah.
but specifically with men, is that we're all starting out based off our upbringing, our people that are around us, our siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all starting out with a different level of, let's say, we're on a we're somewhere on this spectrum between masculine and feminine, and that's kind of like it's just what it is, right? It's like it's
Yeah.
someone like you said is brought up in a household where there's a lot of women, right? They're just gonna naturally have more of a feminine, you know, flavor to
Mm-hmm.
them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not good or bad, right? But it's important, and this is one of the things that I really view as very important about men's work is that it cannot be one size fits all.
Mm. It's a good point.
Yeah, because I mean, not only just on a very basic level do we have all different experiences, but as men, we have a vast amount of experiences and differences in experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and what works for me is not going to work for you because what you're going to need, your medicine is going to be slightly different from mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think especially, again, drawing kind of correlations to my personal story, but also some of the guests that I've interviewed, as children, we tend to kind of receive traumas, maybe from childhood, from parents, sometimes unintentionally. And I'm not talking about some really crazy traumas, although in some cases that may be the case. But a lot of these things that are happening, and we kind of unknowingly continue to carry those traumas and all this kind of baggage, if you will, throughout
Mm-hmm.
life. So again, not one size fits all. I think men's work in and of itself is incredibly beneficial, at least has really drastically changed my life. And I don't say this lightheartedly for a lot of things. But yeah, realizing that you're moving towards what Carl Jung said, this individuation, where you as an individual become whole, integrating your anima and animus, masculine, feminine, your conscious side as well as your shadow side is incredibly important. And this is a journey. You might resonate with men's work for a couple of years and then something else kind of comes up. So it's a never ending dance, right? It's a never ending balance, like you said. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think a lot of men, from not even I think, I just see it a lot, is they're totally unaware of these traumas that have happened, that they tend to kind of have the shadow side keep projecting onto other men, other women. And this is why I think this field of work will hopefully become more and more popular, and is going to have a more and more impact on other human beings, because this is, I think, beneficial for both men and women, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole, right? You can't, cannot go without the other.